Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I set up my A7C II for photos, and I will make another video for video setup, so stay tuned. By the way, if you are still considering whether the A7C II is the right choice for you, go check out my review for this camera. Let's start with how to set the FN button. If you already know how to do this, feel free to jump to the part you're interested in. When you press FN, you will see 10 functions that you most frequently need. If you want to change any of these from the default functions, you'll have to go to Menu, Setup, 3. Operation Customize, FN Setting. At the top is Photo FN Setting, and at the bottom is Video FN Setting. Just choose the one you want to change and replace it with another function. Now that you know how to set it, I'll show you my FN menu and when I use these functions. The first one is Picture Profile. There are two picture profiles that I use very often. The PP11 Cinetone and the other one is PP Off. Cinetone will give you a very natural and slightly under-saturated tone. So if you don't like editing, you can choose Picture Profile 11 Cinetone. As for Picture Profile Off, you will get a very neutral color. And when it is turned off, on the sidebar of your monitor, you can see this Creative Look option. There are several looks to choose from. Each will give you different color and tone. I have another video for that, so feel free to check it out. The next one, I set the aspect ratio. I think it is also something that I need to adjust very often, so I guess there's nothing too much to talk about it. The next one is steady shot. Most of the time, I set the steady shot function to on, but when I set the camera on a tripod, I will turn it off in case the camera detects any movement and try to correct it. Next, we have recognition target. There are a lot of targets you can choose from: human, animals, birds and butterflies, cars and chains, and airplanes. This function only exists in newer models of Sony cameras like the ZV-E1, A6700 and the A7Cii II. You can also access the recognition target on the sidebar of your monitor. The next one is focus mode. You can choose autofocus continuous, autofocus single, and manual focus. Most of the time, I shoot in autofocus continuous, whether I am shooting stills or something that moves. And I choose manual focus when I want to do critical focus, like for example, shooting close-ups. The next one is APS-C crop mode shooting. Usually I set it to auto so that when you mount an APS-C lens on it, the camera will detect it and use APS-C mode automatically. And it's the same way when you mount a full-frame lens on it. But remember, when you mount a manual lens without metal contact on it, it will not automatically detect it, so you will have to switch the APS-C mode on or off by yourself. In the second row, we have white balance. Most of the time, I just use auto white balance, but of course there are times when it's not correctly reflecting the colors. So in these cases, I will go to the temperature filter and choose the correct number. In most cases, I judge the number according to my naked eye. But of course, if you want precise white balance, you can use a white card, a gray card to set the white balance accordingly. Next, we have touch function in shooting. The previous two functions are pretty straightforward. The first one, touch focus, means when you touch that area, you focus on there. And when you choose touch checking, when the subject is moving, the focus will also be moving. And the third one is very interesting. It's touch shutter. It means that when you touch the monitor, it will focus and take a shot at the same time. So if you are shooting something that moves very fast and you can't afford to lose any time to focus and then shoot, you can choose this one so that it will do both at the same time. It's a very useful function for street photography. Next is silent mode. When you turn on silent mode, you won't hear the shutter sound and vice versa. This is very helpful when you don't want others to notice you are taking pictures. But there are some cases where you want to turn off silent mode, which comes to our next setting, shutter type. You can choose either electronic shutter or mechanical shutter. The former allows for faster shutter speed, but the latter will give you better rolling shutter control as well as avoid bending under certain artificial lighting. You can see when you enable silent mode, the mechanical shutter is not available. So when you want to avoid bendings like this, you will need to turn off silent mode. The next one is focus area. I will only explain a few that I use most often. Wide is, as its name suggests, it will cover almost your entire monitor and it will pick up the subject automatically. If you are a beginner or if there's only one subject in the frame, then this is the way to go. Zone focus is similar to wide, but you can see it doesn't cover the entire screen, so we can kind of limit the area that you want the focus to pick up your subject. And of course, you can change where your zone is going to be, and whatever's outside the zone will not be picked up. Center fix is also very useful. It's also just like its name suggests, it will keep your focus at the center. I would recommend using this in a controlled environment, like when you set your camera on a tripod and you are shooting a product, which in most cases I would assume is at the center of your frame. These three are the ones that I use most often. If you scroll down, you can see more options. And if you think this is distracting, you only want to keep a few on this F1 menu like I do, you can go to Menu, Focus, and number 2, Focus Area, Focus Area Limit, and then only keep the ones that you want to show on your F1 menu. This way your menu will be much simpler. Finally, it's the switch between RAW files and JPEG files. I shoot both most of the time, but there are certain cases where I need to shoot in JPEG files. You probably already know it. When you use clear image zoom, it only supports JPEG. Now I have already set the C1 button to clear image zoom. When I press it, you can see this warning. So now I have to choose to shoot in JPEG. And again, I will press C1. And now I can adjust the wheel to set how much I want to zoom in. Now we have already gone through all the functions in the F1 menu. Let's take a look at customizable buttons. To set your custom key, it's very easy. Just go to Setup, and instead of choosing F1 menu settings, this time we will choose custom key and dial settings. And now you can set your functions according to the icons you see on the monitor. I have already set my front dial to aperture and my rear dial to shutter speed. And of course, I can adjust the ISO just as it says ISO here. As for this one, I set it to exposure compensation. When you shoot in aperture priority mode, it will allow you to increase or decrease your exposure by 0.3 stops. And if you shoot in manual mode and you have already set your ISO to an appointed number, this will not function. But when you shoot in manual mode and auto ISO, this one still keeps the exposure compensation function. Now, as I have said previously, I set the C1 button to clear image zoom, and I set this AF on button to AF/MF switch because I think it is easy to remember. You see this AF, you know it's AF/MF switch. So there you have it. It's my A7C II camera setup for photos. I think this will cover most of your needs for photo taking. And of course, there is no right way to set your camera. You can always make your own adjustment according to your shooting habit. If you find this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment to let me know. If you have any questions about these settings, also feel free to ask in the comment area. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.